Hello! Thanks for joining my stream. Hey Rance, I see you're already here. I am streaming something a bit different today. I've got a good friend of mine, ThatsNoMoon, here with me.
Hello. How are you, Army? It's our first time together as well, collabing.
It is. Although we've talked about doing something like this for a while. Um, we
Yeah, and
actually
we
met up in this crazy game that we play. We were matched up in a Grand Arena Championship, and I believe I kicked your ass pretty soundly, right? Is that?
yeah, I mean it was one with shit. So it wasn't a canon Grand Arena. And things have improved a lot since then. A lot more deep diving, a lot more modding, and I actually sort of know what I'm doing at the moment. Don't know that much about the kit still, but I've got a fair idea of what I'm doing. I would like the rematch fairly soon.
I would I would love a rematch. Absolutely. Funny thing is, if you recall, in our matchup, it was actually First Order that tripped you up, if you recall.
Um, kind of recall it. I'll have to watch it again.
Yeah,
I usually trip up against First Order, so that's not a surprise.
it'll keep that in mind for later. That might come into play here again. So kind of the idea behind what I'm wanting to do here is take a look back at my recent bracket. We just completed a Grand Arena Championship, and I want to kind of talk about what I placed on defense, kind of where my thought process was at the time, and then go over what worked, what didn't work, and if it did work, did it work for the reason that I thought it would, or not? And there are some interesting results. I think I sent you some of the screenshots. They'll be on stream as well. But yeah, let's go ahead and jump right into it here. So we'll go
Yeah,
ahead.
so what I can see, so I can see your sort of match one, match two, etc. But let me know what I'll do. I'll change over to rather than push to talk, I'll change over to sort of mic, normal mic, and if I need to go to SWGOHGG.
Yeah. If you because we'll be looking at the GAC history on the website. It'll be on screen. I was kind of expecting you to be able to like just piggyback off of the stream, but I know you're on mobile, so you're possibly not quite looking at it. But right now, I've got match one up on the stream. You can see I beat these guys by a good 80 points. Um, I was able to full clear on them. They struggled, and it was a bit interesting of a struggle. But so we'll take a look real quick and take a look on what I placed on defense. So the first place we'll look at is the north wall here,
Hmm.
which wasn't really anything too fancy. So he had a better or a faster Darth Revan and Bastila Fallen Shan than me, which normally,
That's
if you
all.
are faster, you would want to put those on defense. But I was wanting to draw because I knew he like me. We both had Gear 11 um, General Skywalkers, and I know that he
Hmm.
always placed his on defense. So I knew that Thunderstruck is giving me some shit about the Jawas. We'll come back to that here in a bit. I don't
Oh, I'm
always
a big
expect
fan.
Jawas to hold, but I do expect them to bleed banners. Um, but anyway, so I know that he always puts his gas on defense. Um, but I knew that he had this Sith Empire team, and I didn't want his Sith Empire team to be able to just slaughter my Grievous with Watt. And so I needed another team to sort of draw them out. So that's why I placed my Darth Revan team on defense here in the North Zone. And then we'll take a look at my front wall. So with save it. So here's the front wall that I put on here. The other thing that I took off of defense, I usually have my geos on here. Hey, Bold Marrow, how's it going? Usually I'll.
While you're going, sorry, just while you're going through it, hopefully. But I'm just loading up your GAC history.
Okay. Okay. Sure. So this was my other front wall here. I had been using geos on defense. This time I saved them because I knew that my geos were going to beat his Night Sisters. And I wanted to go a little heavier on defense. So I swapped out Padme for the geos. So in my front zone here, we've got Padme and my Grievous team, which Grievous actually got a hold. And then quickly just show the back wall here. The back wall really surprised me because my First Order team, which at the time was a mixture of Gear 12 and 11, took 4 battles.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, what? How did that manage? How did you manage to go 4 against First Order? And we'll see, because we'll pull up here now.
Because I mean, Hux and
You are cutting in and out a bit.
okay, switch to push because that seems to be a little.
Okay. So one thing that I like about the GAC history is it'll show you in chronicle order the way that they sort of go about their business. And they started off actually going up against my Sith Empire team with their Sith Empire team, which I liked. That was the plan. They didn't use Malik, which I thought that was kind of interesting. I managed to bleed good banners. My team killed off his Darth Revan and his trooper, and then took protection off of 2 others. So pretty good banners there.
Yeah, so what's that, 53?
Oh, let's see. So we'll start with 60. We lose 3 for there, 3 for there. So that's 54. Yeah, 52.
52, yeah.
So 52 off of that, which is fantastic. He did something really interesting that I hadn't really seen before. He took his Traya against Padme, but he added in Malik. So that's what he did with his Malik team, was threw it in with Traya. And my Padme, without 3PO, I had Shakti instead. And I didn't really know what to expect because I didn't know how well they would do on defense, you know? They managed to kill everyone except for Malik.
Yeah, I mean, Malik's one of those weird characters, especially on offense, because, well, it's kind of one of those broke.
Right. But yeah, I'll take this all day, every day on defense. If my team can kill 4 of your team, oh, that's just beautiful, right?
Well, it's a great trade-off.
Oh yeah, I'll take that trade-off all day. Especially when used on offense, since Padme doesn't have a way to really regenerate protection very well. Like, Shakti can do a little bit, but for the most part, you're not looking at a 60 banner win usually with Padme. And then the next thing that he tried to do was take his Padme against my Grievous with my R7 Watt, which he timed out. My boys killed off GMY, and then the rest of the team timed out. So that executed perfectly, according to plan, because since he used Sith Empire against Sith Empire, he didn't have much left to go up against my Grievous team, so he went with Padme. It failed, but he was able to clean up with his Jedi Knight Revan. And then a simple Grievous versus Night Sister, which makes sense. And then we get down here to First Order, and the first thing he did was just take the classic Jedi training Rey against them, which is usually a pretty hard counter.
Yeah, but he undersized it with 4 though, right?
He undersized it, and if I recall correctly, someone else tried to undersize my first order team, and that was before I had Hux. uh,
Yeah, I don't remember that.
of course not, no. um, and then after that, the next thing that he tried was Ewoks, and Ewoks against First Order is usually a counter, but Hux in there with his unique ability to shut down that turn meter train, I bet his Ewoks just never. They lost in 30 seconds, and it looks like they didn't even take off anything. In fact, it looks like some of my guys even regenerated some protection there. He managed to kill First Order Stormtrooper with Shock T and some leftovers, and then he finally cleaned them up here with an EP team that looks like EP Thrawn and some leftovers. Well, I guess Savage is the weirdo, but the rest of them are there, and that makes sense. And
Yeah.
then everything else,
Um,
no real surprises. He used CLS against my Newt Nest team. If your CLS is good enough to take out my R4 Nest, good for you. You're risking a timeout. Um,
I
Pivotal liked
didn't
my
have any.
Savage is a weirdo.
Yeah, I don't seem to have any trouble against nests. Um,
It depends
with
on
Rebel.
well, here he didn't have 3PO in there, which is smart. That's usually the trap. The
Yeah,
trap is if you get stuck taking off her turn meter too much, if she never takes a turn and you're stuck in her
yeah.
bonus protection, you'll never be able to kill her.
CLS, Han, and C3PO there.
Yeah, so they did manage that, and then they took their just leftover rebels here with Wigs and R2D2 and C3PO and Leia to take on the Jawas. But if you look, every single one of them is losing protection. So my Gear 10 Jawas, they only got 55 banners off of it.
Yeah, and well, as you were rightly saying before, I think you're one of the only ones who realizes that, like as we were saying before, Malak does the job because it's going to be, they don't really get affected by thermals or health-based attacks. But so first order like Kylo Ren on Marston, Kylo Ren, perfect. But most people tend to put their first order on defense. I found, and I
Yep.
don't think you'd solo Malak with it. It would feel almost like an overkill. So
Very
I
much
think a
so.
lot of people, will sort of take troopers or a Jedi squad, like a second-rate Jedi squad, or something like that, without realizing. I mean, Bastard Sham Fallen should be, sorry, not Bastard Sham Fallen, normal light side Basti. Maybe with that protection up, you might be able to get through it unscathed, but there's not many things there that, or if you can get out of it, if you can get out quick enough, like clones. But still, clones are even because even when you think, well, I've got a fast team or troopers, it doesn't matter unless you've got big damage, like a big AOE, which is
Yep.
only one hit, like a Grievous. There's not much you can get away with cheaply there.
There really isn't, and most people fall into some traps, as we'll see with this next opponent. Um, they didn't fare too much better um, with Jawas. So in match number 2 here, um,
But just before we go on to match number two,
uh-huh.
what are your thoughts on? So, how do you run your nest? Do you run it quick? Do you run it slower? Do you run it tenacity build or
uh,
health build?
I still have her on high health, high tenacity. Um,
Because I see a lot of. So, would you mind going through as well, just
yeah,
for anyone who doesn't realise it? Because obviously, what's yours? R7?
yeah. No, mine is R4. I've got her up on the screen for the viewers watching at home. I run her with high tenacity. She's got 154% tenacity. She's only got plus 43 speed, which comes out to
Mm-hmm.
222. So not super slow, but not super fast. Then I also have a crit avoidance arrow on her.
Yeah.
So the idea there is between her 67,000 health and high tenacity, um, it is a supposed to just stand in there and punish people.
Yeah, and I think health is the thing that I see there a lot of the time is that people don't run enough health on Nest,
Right,
or they
exactly.
or they tend to do more maybe protection, or they just mod all for tenacity and no secondary health at all.
Yeah, that is the same thing. And anytime I see that, I'm like, okay, well, my rebel trio is gonna go in there, and Han's just gonna one shot that bitch.
Exactly, a very simple like equivalent relic level, maybe even a couple of relic levels below, like a relic 2 Han Solo. As soon as you've got rid of that protection, maybe with Chewie, because Chewie, well, you were saying recently that Chewie's attacks are sort of health based as well, um,
Correct.
and and that makes a big difference.
It helps. It helps a lot.
So
So
yeah, so in terms of how to mod Nest, we reckon health, we reckon obviously a good batch of tenacity as well, especially on defense. On offense, it does help as well if you do want to solo certain teams. But I think as well it's pretty important. Now I prefer a slower nest for counter attacks, and you keep that big stack of protection up for
yep.
as long as you can, so you minimize the chances of someone one-shotting you or the
Yeah.
wrong person. So maybe R2 takes a turn. It's all a bit of pot luck, but I find that keeping the speed down on nest actually really does help with. And just countering. I find that keeping the speed down does help because she's not exposing herself to a huge amount of turns where she can be one shot.
For sure. It's all about minimizing that window. But it also depends on how you use Nest. Like, if you are using Nest in, say, like a bounty hunter squad, um, or in certain different types of squads, sometimes it actually does really help to have a really fast, high potency Nest if the goal is to get out in front of the enemy and apply her AoE daze. So it does go back to how you use her. Um, Mine, high tenacity,
Yeah,
high health. I want you to get stuck behind her bonus protection, and then she just counterattacks you to death. That's kind of the goal.
of course, and essentially that's if you're putting her on defense, that's what you want to be doing. Whereas if on offense, you might need to bump that speed a little bit, um, just for getting round certain things.
Absolutely. So let's go into match 2 here. It was pretty similar. I went in. I don't think I one shot everything. I think I got stuck on. No, I did. Okay, I one shot everything. I got 1917 banners. They came back. They lost 2 battles. They dropped against me for an 1870. So they fared a little bit better. This time, instead of having Jawas up north, I actually kept them in the bottom front
Yeah, who
because
was it again giving you shit about Jawas?
it's one of those things where, similar to territory wars, it is a battle of attrition, and you want to force your opponents to make as many choices as you can, because the more choices they have to make, um, the more choices they have to make, the more times they have to mess up. And if they make a mistake,
Yeah.
you can capitalize on that mistake. So it really helps a lot in that sense. So
Well, funny you should say that because you're one of the earliest attackers I've ever known.
yes,
Um, when it comes to Grand Arena attack, do you find that it's just out of impatience, or do you feel that by putting up a high score there, it now puts pressure on them and they've got to make a move or they've got to make those choices to? Because
yeah,
I'm prefer it the other way round.
I definitely like to get out there ahead. If I am confident that I've got the hard counters to win, I'm gonna go in guns ablazing, fast and loose, as quickly as I can, and just put the pressure on them, because like you go into a matchup and the other guy's already full cleared you, one shot everything with 1917 banners. That's a lot of pressure.
It's pressure, it's demoralizing.
it it
You
really
slip up
is.
in one of the battles.
And in this instant, I actually took a lot of thought before setting my defense. based on the principle of I want to force them to make decisions. Because I realized when I put Jawas up there at the top, well, we just went through on the thing to show how when they attacked, what they attacked. The very last one they did was Jawas, and they were able to throw the best of what was left against Jawas. And over time, I've noticed that when they're able to see the whole board, clear everything else, and leave Jawas for last, my Jawas don't do as good. But as we see right here on the screen, this was in the front. Jawas got a hold. The other team there is my Gear 11 gas team. And the reason I did that is because I knew that he keeps his gas for offense, or he had historically before this point. I know that gas completely trivializes Grievous and Watt teams, no matter the relics or the modding or anything like that. So what I actually did here was I put gas in here because he had the R7 gas, all the fancy smancy stuff. I put the gas there as bait to draw out his gas. I went in early. I got the high banners. I put the pressure on him. He knows that he can't drop a battle, and my hope would be that he would then go in, do a mirror match because it's going to be a guaranteed win. He's not going to take any risks, and then I had this hiding in the back, which is my Grievous team and my First Order team.
Yeah.
And Grievous got 2 battles. First Order team didn't do as well this go around. Unsurprisingly, because normally they don't. The first round was a bit of an anomaly there, but the plan seems to have worked. And then the other thing that I had on this one was just at the top, 1-1-1. I had Geo's, Night Sister, and my Newt Nest team, just 1-1-1.
Yeah.
So no real surprises there.
When they've opened it up again, it's much easier to see. But as you say, when they've burnt, maybe what did they use on the? Did they go mirror match on the?
They went mirror match. Yep, I've got that up on the screen right now. You can see the very first thing they did was go in, mirror matched it. There are Relic 7 decked out 501st squad versus my 6-star Gear 11 gas. Mirror matched it, 55 banners. I'll take that as a win. And then the next thing they did, because now they're forced to make a decision early on, if they want to see my back row, they've got to take care of these Jawas. What are they going to use against it? And they tried Troopers.
Yeah.
And they lost. Because Troopers get a lot of assists, a lot of attacks out of turns, and a lot of AoEs.
And a huge amount of DPS.
They have a lot of DPS, but they kind of spread out that DPS, and if you don't know what you're doing, you're gonna stack up those thermals really quick, and before you know it, your guys are just gonna pop. He cleaned up with Wampa, which probably for full banners, whatever was left of that. There's a little bit of protection off, but I know if you lose a little bit of protection, it's usually fine. Then once they opened up the back wall, they took care of my top wall. They used hard counters, Padme versus Night Sister, Treya versus Geos, and then they used their Jedi training Rey against my Newt Nest. So all fairly hard counters there, no real surprises. They did lose R2, and they lost 5 banners with the Padme win, and it looks like 4 banners against Geos. So even then, bleeding banners, bleeding banners, bleeding banners.
I mean, how close are you to a Relic Geo spy?
I'm not focusing on spy right now because I have some other higher priorities, but it's definitely on my list of wants. I want to take spy up to relics, and I want to stack as much crit chance as I can. Because the popular counter is Treya Scion with crit avoidance, so you need to kind of give Spy that extra crit to overcome that.
That's it. And obviously Soldier will give him around about 15, 20, 25% extra crit. I can't remember.
Yeah, something like that. But then they took it to my bottom wall, and they used Jedi Knight Revan against First Order, which I guess they had him left over. I guess they didn't want to use it against my Grievous Watt team, Probably because I've got it crit avoidance there on Watt, so that kind of neutralizes Jedi Knight Revan squads a bit. Um,
What did they use to clear that Newt squad?
the Newt squad, they used Jedi Training Ray, BB-8, Old Finn, R2, and 3PO.
Interesting, because I would have gone if I could have seen the board. That's where I would have gone with that Jedi Knight Revan squad, straight into that Newt squad, and
Yeah,
also
I would have reversed those two as well.
by like reducing that health pool on Nest as well.
So it is really interesting that they chose that, but it worked, or at least it
Okay.
cleared it. They might have gotten
Yeah.
better banners had they reversed it. Who's to say? But then what they did against Grievous was they just used CLS to kill Watt, and then they came back and cleaned up with Night Sisters.
Okay, so it
Um,
was a deliberate two shot.
yeah, they deliberately two-shot that. I guess maybe once they could see the back row, they probably realized that I had baited them into using their gas.
Hmm.
Uh,
Or not.
but this was one where the plan went flawlessly, and I was able to achieve what I was wanting to achieve. Baited them into using their gas before they really needed to. Um,
Yeah, if the shoe was on the other foot, how would you go through? And let's say the opponent had put a 6-star gas, but the rest of the clones there are relict. How would you get through that one?
so depending on how good they are, a popular counter to gas that I'm wanting to build up, I'm not quite there yet. But what I would want to do is use uh, actually a CLS squad. If you have CLS, Han, Chewie, Old Ben, and then either Watt, R2, or 3PO, it'll counter gas. And
Hmm.
then, of course, your relics need to be comparative to theirs and all that stuff. The other thing that I would possibly use, um, I mean, a mirror match is fine, I suppose, but against a Gear 11 gas, Padme is also a really good option there because they'll burn through that protection really quick on a Gear 11 and then hopefully be able to slaughter the rest. And then when that gas stands up, chances are he won't one shot your General Kenobi. um,
Oh yeah, 6-star. There's no chance.
you're
I
right.
mean, what I'm probably working on towards, just to make it a little bit cheaper, so I can keep CLS somewhere else, is you might have seen in guild chat that there's been some work going into Stormtrooper Han. He's slowly getting there. He's gear
Oh
11 at the
yeah.
moment. I'm scouting his gear 12 gear because there is a certain squad which is Stormtrooper Han lead. You've got Chewie and Han, Raid Han, Van Chew, and Wat Tambor in there as well. So that's kind of feels like a little bit of a net win rather than using Padme um, against that. So that's kind of what I'm working on at the moment in the
Sure,
background.
sure. Yeah.
I mean, we're actually both going. We're actually both going to have within 24 hours a relic. I would have thought a relic 7
Oh
General
yeah.
Anakin Skywalker. Is this going to change your the way you approach Grand Arenas?
Oh my god, it's going to change so much because it's going to give me flexibility to do several different things. Um, Probably won't go into too much detail now, but I bet in a future defense and review episode, it'll be a lot of fun to look back on what I wind up doing. But I've got plans, and having an R7 gas, which I'll have within 24 hours for sure, um, it opens up so much because what it's going to do is going to free up gas. I'll be able to use them offensively, defensively, splitting them up on offense. It's going to free up Sith Empire a lot more, and I've got some special fun ideas with that. And the other thing that it'll do is it'll allow me to free up whether I want to maybe throw Jedi Knight Revan on defense once in a while. Currently, I use them exclusively for offense, but since gas will give me a hard counter to some of the things that I use Jedi Knight Revan for currently, it'll just give me a little bit more flexibility to every now and then throw him on defense and just let him be a surprise.
Yeah, I mean, obviously you've got General Anakin who can solo pretty much most squads out there for 63 banners. And then, you think about, right, well, now I've got Shakti clones that I can set on defense. But Rex lead, is still a legitimate lead. And
Oh,
it's a tough, because
absolutely.
when he's going out the gate, he's super quick and he's going to feed, even if you've got a Wampa in there as well, if you've got a Relic Wampa on defense, people are going to be scratching their head. And just going back to a point that you made, um, when you give people obvious things to counter, so if you give someone Geos, chances are they're going to go with Traya. If you give people General Grievous without Wat Tambor, likely they're going to go for a Jedi Knight Revan. Now,
Yeah.
if you've got like some interesting B teams or teams where you're borrowing from a couple of teams that just shift it, maybe putting BB-8 in with Grievous, or maybe putting Wat
Yeah.
Tambor in with Grievous, whatever it is. Now, or even a Rex lead rather than a Shakti lead. This can get people thinking, and this is where people make mistakes. And what I like to call the battle of the B teams. So everyone knows the counters. If you're up against a Supreme Leader, Kylo Ren, well, you know a very specific, it's actually quite easy to get through if you've got the counter and you know what you're countering with. Or if
Right.
you're up against a General Anakin, you know what you're going to use. There's very little margin for error because it's almost muscle memory. You've done it so
Yeah,
many times in an
exactly.
email.
And I
And
think that's one of the biggest problems that people face when it comes to their GACs these days is people set predictable defenses. Like you'll see bounty hunters, you'll see Old Republic, you'll see, these things that you fought time and time and time again. You know the counters to them. It takes the guesswork out of it. They sit the same defense every single time. You can see that if you look at their history. Um, you've got to keep them guessing, and you've got to get them into positions where they're going to make mistakes. And I think it's really, really critical to do this. Um, because like you'll see a lot of the content creators, they put out, they stream their GACs. I plan on starting to do that, starting with the next bracket. I'll be streaming mine. You see all these strategies, all these videos on YouTube about, hey, this is how you counter this. This is how you do this. Everything is geared so much towards making content for offense that you don't really see a lot of content out there for defense. You'll see, here's the 20 best defensive teams, blah, 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 but not necessarily how to deploy them. And I think that's one place where this show can be different from what's already out there. Is like, we're going in, we're not just showing you what I used, but whether or not it worked. And
yeah,
I think here in my third round was a time where the plan didn't go according to plan.
so
So
this is the final.
this is the final. This was, I went 2-0, he went 2-0. This is in the final. I look up his history. I look through everything that he's done, and he has always gone full offense, saved everything for offense, had just a really weak defense.
We
So
were
I
mounting
knew
the
in my
empire.
head, all right, he saves everything for offense. There's no way I'm going to be able to stop him on defense. So I'm just going to make sure that I have the right counters for offense. Um, Probably go a little bit lighter than I normally would on defense. Try to throw in a few tricks, but I don't know if it's going to work or not. But let's try hiding Grievous in the back again. Although this time I'm saving gas for offense. For a guaranteed win wherever I decide to use him. Save him for
Yeah.
offense. Go for the guaranteed win. I wound up going on defense with. I wound up going on defense with, and you're probably gonna think it's dumb, but I actually put Old Republic with Wampa on defense, and you're probably gonna think that that's dumb because what do you go for when you see a an Old Republic team there?
So, well, personally, I tend to save my Malek for something just like that, or we've spoke about it before, that an Empire Palpatine lead, something like that can just stack the turn meter if the if you've got someone, usually Thrawn will go off quicker than Wampa. A lot of people will still be in the habit of fracturing Zalbar rather than Wampa. But
Yeah.
I mean, it's pick your poison, really. But I mean, I would tend to keep Malak. I would tend to keep Emperor Palpatine, an Empire, or I would probably use my Gear 12-ish Jedi. What's her name now? Rey.
Yeah. Well, I was kind of throwing it out there as Malik bait to try to bait him into going, oh, well, I'm going to sit here, I'm going to try to eat this for 64 banners. So we'll take a look here at my top wall. It's nothing fancy, it's Geos, it's my Newt team, and it's Old Republic, but with one twist. I threw Malik in with my Newt team. I had done the research on his what he's always said in the past, and I knew that I wasn't going to need Malik with my Sith Empire team because that would be overkill for everything. But his
Mhm.
defense also was set up to where there really wasn't an obvious Malik solo anywhere. So I knew that I kind of had Malik to play around with, so I actually stuck him in there just to see what would happen.
Yeah.
Um, so Old Republic didn't hold; it took one battle. No surprise there. Geos actually took two battles, which was a little surprising. And then
Mhm.
that Newt Nest team actually took three battles, um, which
I mean,
surprised me just a little bit.
well, when you think about it, you've got Nest, who is a nightmare anyway. You've
Yeah,
got Mount, who can easily reject. There's not many teams that will be even a solo Malak. You've got to be careful going in against even, if you've had a battle against Sith Empire and you've just got Malak left. But there's still a lot of teams that he beats. You've got Dooku that's going to regenerate the protection there with that Zeta. And also you've got Droideka, who is going to be under damage immunity as well.
yeah,
So there's a lot of, and then Newt as well will quite easily wreck your day.
yeah,
It's,
and
or either wreck your day or wreck your banners.
it definitely gave him fits.
Yeah.
Uh, and then for my front wall, again, I didn't have my gas team on defense this time to sort of draw out something to protect Grievous in the back, but I did put my Night Sisters. My Night Sisters are pretty good. They're R2, R4, pretty strong. And then again with the Jawas to kind of force them into making a decision. And
What
then
did they use against Jawas this time?
you'll see. It's
Okay.
actually really interesting, and I'd like to talk about it.
Mhm.
But then in the back, when they finally clear through, they break through. It's First Order, it's Grievous, same as the last round. Three battles against my Grievous, and get this, three battles against my First Order, and it held.
Yeah, I can. Well, I've got the screenshots that you sent over. So obviously you'll
And
have to go.
it
You'll
held.
have to go through what they use to attack. Um,
Absolutely.
I don't like facing First Order.
I don't mind them. I know what I'm doing against them, so they don't necessarily bother me. So the first thing they did, they started off at the bottom, and this is where what I was anticipating that they would do, they didn't follow anything that I thought that they would do. They actually gave me a gift though. So I put Night Sisters thinking that it would take a Padme or take something.
Mhm.
He used Sith Empire against my Night Sisters.
Did he undersize it? So just three,
No,
or
all
all
five
five?
of them, Sith
Wow.
Trooper, it, and I don't know where his thought. I would love to have him on here to find out kind of what his thought process was, but he didn't know it yet at this point in the matchup. But he just gifted me so big because that was the biggest counter that he would have had against my Grievous team. And
Mhm.
that's not even taking into
Certainly.
the little trick throwing Malik into the Newt thing or even the fluke Geo hold. Um, yeah, so right off the bat, he uses his strongest against not my strongest. That was a tactical mistake on his part, I feel. And then he used troopers against Jawas. But get this, it was a 60 banner win.
What?
Yeah, I got to thinking, and I checked speeds on his Stark, and his Stark is like blazing fast. And it's not even that
Mhm.
great of a trooper team. It's gear 11. The only gear 12 was Stark, but he had good modding on it. And I bet you
Mhm.
anything, what he did is he knows Jawas really well. So he knows what to do. And I bet you anything, he spiked the turn meter to give all of his guys turn meters, and then I bet he
Yeah.
used single target attacks against Scavenger first. Take him out, eliminate the threat, mow down the rest.
So just yeah, so just basics rather than the big AOE's, because that's really
Exactly.
my thing is
Exactly.
having it go over your
So
head.
if you want to use your troopers against Jawas, if you ever see Jawas on defense, this is one way to do it. Pretty cheap. Most people haven't invested too much into their troopers at this point. Unfortunately, it's a super fun team.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, no, good on him, because I could go through all of my history and just show you battle after battle after battle with my Jawas either killing them like we saw last round or just bleeding banners like we saw in the first round. When I saw this, I was like, whoa, because this is the first time that I've seen a trooper team do this. But then after
Hmm.
that, I think he stopped having fun. The next thing he tried, the next three battles that he tried, he lost. First, he tried taking Jedi Knight Revan against my Grievous Watt team, which again, the way that I mod them, they're specifically built to not allow Jedi Knight Revan. Like, Jedi Knight Revan's gonna have a hard time. He had a hard time here. Then he tried taking his Jawas against my Geos and lost in 30 minutes. My guys have no protection loss, so they probably regened after whatever. Or maybe they went after Scavenger first, I don't know. So my Geos held. I don't know. I would love to know what happened in that battle, frankly. I would
Hmm.
also love to know why he didn't just use Treya or another hard counter. Jawas are a great counter for Geos, but they kill your banners, so that would never be plan A for me.
No, I mean it's kind of more like a last chance saloon.
Yeah, it's one of
If
those,
you
if you don't have any other options and you need to clear, do
That's
it.
it. Yeah, exactly. So if banners aren't really an issue, it's going to be a last chance saloon. I mean, the as you say, the way he gifted you there was using Sith Empire versus those Night Sisters. And the other thing is, when he would have seen Wat Tambor, that would have been a real issue for his Jedi Knight Revan team.
Yeah, he should have. He should have. Now, the other option would have been Padme, but we saw last round Padme struggled against it too. Like, he had already burned the one team that could have one-shot it. He did take his Padme against that Newt Nest Malik team first, and he killed everybody
Hmm.
but Malik.
Hmm.
And I think Padme would have been a good counter for that, like, because Padme's can beat Malik if you can stick Anakin's healing immunity on him. But I
Yeah,
guess
you need to
either bad
approach it
RNG
quickly.
or something just didn't. Bolmero just stepped out to remod his nest.
We'll have to hope for some.
Already making improvements. I love it.
Yeah, I mean, it's the whole point of this is really to the reason that we're sort of getting into this is to I would assume just to help people with their GACs. Help,
Absolutely.
obviously we'll stop at certain points to talk about modding like we did with Nest, because as you say, when you go over, chances are a lot of these characters you won't have touched their mods for 6 months.
No, absolutely. Yeah. And things change and metas change and the way you mod certain teams also changes because like I know there's one point in time where you had to mod Padme specifically to counter Sith Empire where now maybe you don't necessarily need that. Maybe you can remod her for something else. So things change over time.
Exactly.
In this case, for whatever happened here, Malik was able to take out his Padme squad. So he went in the second battle against Geos with Treya. He won that. He lost two people, bled several other banners. So even then, it was not a high banner win. His second attempt
Yeah.
against Grievous, he used, it looks like, Empire with Darth Nihilus and Pre-Taunton Shore with Thrawn and Vader, which that's a, I mean, good attempt for sure. Wasn't enough. He managed to take out B1, B2 with a sliver of health there, and then a solo, just Grievous left at that point.
Mhm.
He took out OR with Geos. It looks like he might have lost just enough protection to only get 55 banners there.
That's a weird one.
That's a weird one, but I could see it because all I would need is like a few hits on them, and then with their equalization mechanic, Now if one of your people get hurt, it takes banners off of the whole team. I don't
Well,
love
that's
it.
the issue.
I
Well, I
don't
mean,
love it. You
you've
go
got one
from a
thing.
potential 64 banner win to 55 banners. You just gave up 9 banners.
Yeah, I mean, you've got Wampa in there, you've got Zalbar, which with the AoE, and you've also got Canderous in there as well. So there's three chances to lose 9 banners
Yeah.
with duels.
Well, and then also Karth has his AoE, and then of course
This
Mission
goes in.
assists anytime Zalbar attacks.
So actually, Geos is a really bad choice against that because
Yeah,
whoever
that's just
whoever is attacking there, um, because of the equalization,
weird
and
choice.
the problem is with Geos as well on offense, you've got to have it like a really long battle. So I'm not opposed to it versus.
Did we lose you? I think we might have lost him. He is with his daughter right now, so if she woke up, he was gonna just duck out real quick.
Oh no,
Oh,
all good. I
you're
think my
here.
thumb just came off the cookie
Oh,
jar.
okay,
So
okay. He's not
where
gone,
where was
folks.
where was it? Where was I up to? What was the last thing I was saying?
You were talking about picking Geos for this matchup being a little bit weird.
Yeah, so where I would use Geos is against Night Sisters.
Yes,
I mean, they work best against a long battle, where you
and
can regenerate and just cheese the zombie.
we can actually see that
You can,
right here. So this was my Geos against Night Sisters in round 1, where
Mhm.
I got 59 banners.
Yeah.
And that
So
was just because I killed
again,
them too quickly.
well, that's kind of the problem. Sometimes you can kill them too quickly,
Yep.
but as I said, you can sort of cheese the banners. Sorry, you can
Yeah.
cheese zombie a little bit and get
Exactly.
a 60 banner win.
Exactly. And then he
So
cleaned
his
up.
play.
He cleaned up the solo Grievous with Ewoks. So good on him. Ewoks are good against Grievous because you can really control that turn meter. You know.
Yeah, I learned the hard way once.
And then the second battle that he attempted against the solo Malik was like it looks like just bounty hunter leftovers. I'm not sure
Oh,
what
like
his thought process was there. It's an Imbo lead with IG88, Greedo, Cad Bane, and Aura Singh. Hey Camp, how's it
so
going?
so Greedo will strip the turn meter. Cad Bane will stun, depending on how potent his Cad Bane is. But I know that Cad Bane is kind of a. I mean, what I'll probably use is like a Thrawn for the biggest insurance there with Fracture. But Cad Bane stuns. IG88, that's a little bit old. Target lock, I don't know why that would help
Yeah,
with
well he
his
didn't have
AoE.
Thrawn, so
No.
yeah.
But basically, you're looking for a load of stunners.
Yeah, I guess maybe he was trying to stun, but it didn't work out. Malik crushed them in a minute 15. He finally did take out the solo Malik using the good old Rebel Boys and 3PO. That's definitely a great way to do it because you have 2 stuns there. You have a lot of turn meter stripping. Just yeah, that's a really good. Now I'm sure he didn't want to use a CLS there. He just had to. And then we get into the fun here where he's down to just my first order team, and it very clearly he just has a bunch of leftovers. So the first thing that he tried, which isn't a bad team in general, but I guess obviously just not good enough for my first order team, which as we saw is not that great of a first order team. But he had a Kira lead with Young Han, Mission, and Zalbar with Watt, which throwing Watt in there, I think that's a good team. I'm a little surprised it didn't win. I don't know. I haven't seen any testing on it, but he lost in a minute 45. And it just didn't get any better for him. The next thing he tried was a Tarkin lead with leftover Empire and IDP, IPED, Imperial Probe Droid. I guess he couldn't blow up in time. I don't know. And then the last thing that he tried was just like leftover rebels with an Akbar lead. He had Ezra in there and Sabine, Leia, and this guy SRP. But that obviously also didn't go anywhere, and he just lost. Yeah. So he actually didn't clear, and I thought for sure that he would. The reason he didn't clear, and this is the other part of my plan didn't work at all, he left a little present for me on his back row. He left gas on defense. And that threw me because I certainly wasn't expecting it. I struggled a bit with this because I wasn't prepared for it. I didn't go in expecting it. I started clearing his bottom. He had a BB-8 with Grievous, so I used my Jedis. I lost a few more banners than I normally do against that team, so I only got 56, but that's what BB-8 does in that team. You can clear them still in one shot, but it'll bleed extra banners. Then I used my Sith Empire team without Malik against his Newt Nest team because I know that that's going to win every single time. That's what I use against Newt Nest teams a lot of the time when I can afford not using my full Sith Empire team. And then I went with my Padme against his R7 501st squad and cleared out everyone except for Gas. I used my Gear 11 Gas team against Night Sisters because that's a super hard counter. Only lost one banner. He had his relict Jedi Training Ray on defense as well, but I knew that was going to be there, so I just used Treya against that. The first attempt to clear solo Gas didn't work. I used my Bounty Hunter squad, Bosk lead and stuff. They just weren't fast enough. And I should have known better because I've seen Gas solo Bounty Hunters so many times in reverse. I should have known it wasn't going to work. But I tried to bring in some stuns and some stuff there that didn't work at all. This right here is a team that I have found really, really good cleanup against solo Gases. Is if you have some leftover Rebels and 3PO, you can burn down. Every time that I've tried to use it, it has succeeded. 3PO with those exposes, if you have a solo Gas, it'll just eat them up. In this case, I had Wedge, Biggs, Old Ben, and R2 with them, because that's just what I had left over. It works with Old Ben leads, with Ezra in there. It just works if you just put a bunch of Rebels with 3PO and go at it. To burn down those solo Gases, so that's always nice. And then I actually ran into trouble against his Bounty Hunters because his Bounty Hunters were a lot faster than my EP team, and I wasn't expecting that. I checked mods, but I forgot about the bonus speed from Django, and I didn't quite account for that with my Thrawn versus his what Bosk would be with the added speed. He went first. They beat me in 2 minutes. I managed to kill Bosk, though, and severely damage Boba. I cleaned up with my troopers, which was nice because I didn't get to use them. But, yeah, this was definitely one of those where the plan didn't go according to plan, but I was able to improvise, full cleared him, and then he couldn't full clear me. Had he saved Gas for offense, it would have been the shootout that I was anticipating.
Yeah, and I think that was the difference. I mean, again, chipping away at the 501st, even if it's still a tough battle with a solo Gas. It is doable, but you do need, as you say, that DPS. And Rebels, Wedge and Biggs, pretty good. Old Ben, do you find that he gets ability block on there, or is he just more a taunting tank?
Old Ben, I think he is pretty good for the debuffs, the pushing it back, because when he's by himself, he doesn't have all of that crazy
tenacity,
and all that stuff. He doesn't have all that, so I do find that it works pretty well.
Yeah, I was going to say there's not a huge amount of buffs that's gained really for his stacking on him either, unless Old Ben falls, and then they're all going to get a whole load of. But you know, as long as you've got him enough health and protection on there, that should be okay.
Yeah, for sure. And it's every time that I've used it so far, it has worked. I'll probably start using it more often going forward and using it with more confidence. It's still one of those things where it's like when I'm trying something new, I'm still waiting to see, is this really gonna work? Is it not gonna work? Like, I don't really want to go in guns a blazing if it's not gonna work too well, but so far it has worked really well every time that I have tried it. So it's definitely something that I'm gonna just start. Okay, if I whittle them down and I have just gas left, gonna go in there and just take them out with leftover rebels and C3PO if I have 3PO available. Um,
Yeah, certainly sounds the cheapest counter.
yeah, I think so.
You know, like Phoenix are too whiffy. Really, they're too much like wet noodles. They're
Yeah,
not going to produce the damage. There's troopers again. Again, there's better uses for troopers than on a solo gas probably. But an AOE there and days is going to probably wreck their day as well.
yeah. One thing I'd be
Um,
curious in testing, I have no idea if it would work or not, but what about Ewoks with 3PO? Since 3PO seems to work so well with Rebels against him, would the extra turn meter train and the Ewoks going crazy with 3PO, would that work?
Yeah, well, it's very, very similar, I would imagine, but obviously without testing it, we don't know. But I would imagine it's very, very similar to countering a solo Grievous, because it's all about controlling the turn meter, stripping the turn meter,
Yeah,
and filling your own turn meter.
yeah,
And he's certainly not. He's no bulkier than a general Grievous in terms of the damage output that you need.
yeah. The one worry that I would be is Ewoks gain a lot more buffs. So if you lose that control, I think it'd be a lot easier for Gas to then just like one shot all your little Ewok dudes. But it'd be interesting. I'd be up for testing it out at some point. I think so. So yeah. Any thoughts or insights from your most recent Grand Arena Championship? That was all three for mine.
I've just got to duck out for 5 minutes, but I will be back very shortly.
Oh well, if we're gonna duck out, we can go ahead and end it here.
Well, I just need to pop upstairs for like 5 minutes, and then I should be good to go for about another 10 minutes.
Well, uh, I don't really. That was it. We've gone through all of my battles and everything. So if you've got to go, we're
Cool,
good to
cool.
go.
Yeah, that sounds good. Well, we'll catch up soon,
Yeah,
and well done on the successful Grandarina Kyber Championship.
absolutely. And we'll be celebrating that R7 gas tomorrow.
We certainly will. 24 hours can't come quick enough.
Right. All
Right then,
right.
Army. See you soon.
Thank you. It was a
Cheers,
pleasure
cheers.
having you on, and hopefully we can make this a regular thing. Thanks to everybody who is in chat watching and learning, hopefully learning, lurking, and say hi. I hope y'all enjoyed it. This was our first attempt at this, and yeah, thank you for coming out. If you've got any feedback, just let me know. Um, you can find me on Discord, you can find me on Twitter. Most of y'all here can DM me, know how to find me. So yeah, look forward to doing more.
Yeah, and if you want to see Grand Arenas, obviously you'll just start streaming yours. Mine will be on YouTube. Just typing in "That's No Moon" Star Wars Galaxy of Heroes or "That's No Moon" SWGOH, and you'll be
I'll
able to
actually
find them.
get a link here. Go to YouTube and switch over to my account. Gonna shout out my buddy here. That's wrong account as well. So we have with us That's No Moon. He has been streaming that Arena Championship for a while over on YouTube. If you go into his videos and you go way back in the past, you can even find when he and I matched up. So, yeah, we'll shout you out there. Any final thoughts?
Yeah, I'll match up. It was a long night for me. It won't be
Okay.
again. Real short and sweet, I tell you, Army. That Geospy is going to wreck.
Oh yeah, absolutely. All right, thanks for having you on, and thanks for everyone coming out. And I will